topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. This is Divya, and you know that Tuesday mornings are the favorite time of my day. So, folks, I do want to tell you, we have got tree cutting services back in France. So if you hear some noise, I am going to beg for your forgiveness and my sincere apologies for that. So thank you to those who have got our books, because the profits from our books are going to kiva.org to help entrepreneurs all across the globe. So without further ado, let's bring on our guest. Hello, Angie.
Hello, Divya. Thank you so much for having me on your program today.
Absolutely. So, Angie, tell us a moment from your childhood that still stands out for you.
I think one of the most interesting things about my childhood is I grew up in a really rural community in northern Michigan, less than 5,000 people in my town. And this was pre-internet, but I was a really just big reader. And I do not know how this happened, but I got an Esprit, like the fashion brand Esprit that was really popular in the 1980s. I got a magazine from Esprit that showcased really diverse models, this global perspective. And I was so just inspired. And these kids, these young models, wore all these mismatched clothes. And I'd never seen anything before like it. So I had some money that my parents had given me for Christmas. And I went to the mall and I bought all these mismatched outfits, like yellow and black stripes, green and polka dot pants, and I wore them to school and got laughed at ridiculously in my attempt of self-expression. But that did not deter me. I would continue to go on with that space. And when I realized, like looking back on it, how much self-expression was important to me back then and how inspired I was about a bigger world in this rural community. That was one of my favorite and most embarrassing, looking back, childhood memories.
It shows that, how teenagers or children, for that matter, are open to exploring different things. And that's the key to remember from here. So do share your journey from there, where did you go? Where did your life take you from there?
Yeah. So again, growing up in a small community, very few of my high school colleagues went off to college, and I wanted to go really big for my first move. Again, I'd done all this reading. I knew a world was out there. And my dad took me on a campus tour to the University of Michigan. Again, one of the most diverse places I could possibly fathom. And it was about 4 hours away from where I grew up, and which seemed like a really big move at the time. So I went to the University of Michigan. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, with my life after, but I did know that I wanted to pursue an English degree, but I wasn't really excited about teaching. And my dad kept reminding me that there was no English factory that I could go to. So I really kind of needed to figure out like what type of career I was going to use in pursuit of my degree. And he had served in the United States Marine Corps. And he mentioned to me that there was a military training program at college. And I wasn't really excited to explore it. But as soon as I got there and started meeting these young students from all over the country, going off into the military, knowing that they were going to be far flung into the world, it really excited me. You kind of hear the call of the Navy and the Marine Corps about travel and adventure. And it really stirred my senses. So after college, I went into the Marine Corps for 4 years, and lucky enough, I was stationed at Marine Corps Base Hawaii. So I lived in Hawaii for 3 years.
Well, Angie, thank you for your services. And
You're
thank
very
you to your
welcome.
dad also for your services. Really, really appreciate that. So tell us, what was it that you learned from your Marine Corps era? Because there's so much discipline and there's just something about it, having that
Yeah.
patriotism in your running in your blood.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think like most lessons learned, like as you just pointed out about my childhood, looking back and trying to listen to yourself and your expressions and your values, I didn't really realize what I learned in the Marine Corps until I left active duty and really could dissect the whole experience and reflect upon it. I'll share a few things. I think one of the most important things that happened to me during college was going through indoctrination and really understanding that Marine Corps mindset, which really was about you think you are capable of so much. Come join us. We're going to share with you that you don't even know what you're capable of. And they help you shatter your beliefs about your abilities and capabilities, whether they were physical or mental or emotional. And surprisingly, it's a really physical fighting force, but you learn a lot about resilience. And I think some of the mental growth that happens in that process is quite powerful. But I left active duty and started working in the private sector in Los Angeles. I actually had the easiest job in the Marine Corps. I was selling Viagra in Beverly Hills for Pfizer. And so I had a lot of time on my hands. And one of the things that stood out to me was the biggest takeaway coming from the Marine Corps to the private sector is in the Marine Corps, everyone learned leadership, whether you were just leading yourself, whether you were 2 days into the Marine Corps and you're just kind of figuring things out. So leadership was a verb. It was action and behavior, something that something everybody in the organization was learning how to do. And in the private sector, leadership was synonymous with management. That if you weren't a manager, you weren't a leader. Like leadership was treated as a noun. And that to me represented an opportunity to share what I learned in the Marine Corps, professionally speaking. So writing and talking and workshopping, kind of evangelizing this. Hey, wait, leadership is a verb. It doesn't have to be just a noun. Anybody can lead.
Oh, I like that because I completely agree that anything begins with action
Yeah.
and leadership is a verb. So tell us your journey through establishing leadership in the corporate world because corporate world can be quite resistant.
Yes, and this was way back 2004. I partnered with a woman I had served with in the Marine Corps, and we just put our heads together and started brainstorming about writing down our thoughts, our experiences, trying to package it up in a way that would add value to people's lives. So we put together a book proposal and we started trying to find an agent who would represent us to a publisher. We found an agent, and I was still working in pharmaceuticals at the time. Courtney was working as an attorney in Washington, D.C., and he said to us, really, listen, there are a lot of really great ideas represented in this proposal in this book that you want to write. But if you really want to sell a book, you have to embody your message. You have to package it up in a way that you can deliver it in a workshop or a keynote to corporate America. So it felt like if a suggestion, we took it like a dare and we left our companies and thought if we could commit to this for a year or two to see if we could, write full time and put workshops together and speeches together and see if this could be a business. And fortunately for us, one of our very first clients was Walmart, and it was really a cold call. Courtney cold called into Walmart, mentioned to them that they were going through a large lawsuit at the time related to gender relations, and she just referenced that. Why don't we teach everybody how to learn leadership so these challenges can be avoided? And it worked. Random cold call. Like the woman who answered picked up the voicemail, her dad had been in the Marines, so she understood what we were trying to achieve. And once you get your foot in the door with Walmart, suddenly you're a legitimate business, and we were able to really use that to help build our consultancy.
What a lovely story. And it speaks to that not everything goes out of trend or anything like that. It's about giving it your best shot. And when you are going out about it, it makes a huge difference. And as you said about that, once you're in corporate, once you have one client, it provides you that credibility that helps you move forward.
Yeah, and you bring up really a great point too when you mentioned, you got to give it your best shot. And I have to tell you, like, it sounds so easy to tell the story now, almost 20 years later. But at the time, giving it your best shot is, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of moments where you question your confidence, that you have to find something within yourself to put your moxie forward. And even though we'd been, Marines, so we were, I think on the surface, seemingly pretty confident internally leaving the military and pursuing this entrepreneurial venture, I was scared. I was scared all the time. I was like, how am I going to pay my credit card bill? Because we advanced the business some money. How am I going to reclaim this money? There was a lot of uncertainty, but I learned in the process that if you trust yourself and you take some initiative, it's amazing where you can take your life.
Absolutely. So there was this risk involved, and there's so many misconceptions about the risk. So tell us about the misconceptions and tell us about that fear that you kind of hinted at just right now.
Yeah, I think that we all come sometimes when we think about our dreams, our visions, our aspirations, we tend to think of what's holding us back. And oftentimes it's our fears or it's the things that we perceive that we lack. Like, I don't have the right education. Who am I to start a business? I'm an English major. We think about all the things that we don't have. And seldom do we give ourselves some credit in saying, well, these are the things that I do have, and the rest of the stuff I can learn. And so it was a huge risk. And that was the theme of the book that I just published this year, Bet on You, How to Win with Risk. I think we tend to think of taking risks as just, ripping off the Band-Aid or huge leaps, when really risk done right is a series of steps. We didn't write a book overnight. It took a year and a half to put the proposal together, another year to actually find a publisher and finish the manuscript. So it's that slow incremental effort that really leads to results. Same with starting the business. It wasn't, quit your job, change your life. It was, okay, we're going to step away from our jobs and we're going to systematically work through a process to find and acquire new clients. And that was at least a 6-month proposition before we found our first one. And in the process of that, there's a lot of rejection. And I think, when you learned how to take risks, part of that is learning how to deal with the rejection. And that is something to be afraid of, and learning how to override your fears with, some of the tools that we have. This event is called Beyond Confidence. So sometimes some of the tools that we have to boost our confidence is just self-talk, really positive affirmations that, okay, this rejection happened. What am I going to do next to focus on the next opportunity for success? Or even surrounding yourself with positive people. I can tell you that during that time period, I knew what I didn't have. I knew what I lacked. I knew the skills that I really could need to grow into. So I just found mentors and people who could champion me and people who could open doors for me. And some people do, and some people don't. And those who don't, you just let it roll off your skin.
Hmm. So can you share with us, you mentioned that there are misconceptions around the risk. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so I shared one of them, that we think it's a leap, but in reality, risk done right is a series of small steps, because big leaps when it comes to risk or taking change just don't work out. It's like that show, 90 Day Fiance. The reason why we all love it so much is it's a train wreck. It's not going to work out. Probably not going to work out. Sometimes it does, but most times it doesn't. And we all love to watch train wrecks. So that's risk done wrong. If you're thinking about making change in your life, responsible risk is incremental. Start somewhere, anywhere, and take a step, another step. There's that great James Clear book, 1% better every day. That's how change really, sustainable change happens. Another element of risk taking is that we think of it often as the opposite of reward. And oftentimes that's presented to us that way, like risk versus reward, like it's a downside of the choice. But if we think about anything grand that's happened in our life, it's because we've taken a risk. So risk isn't the opposite of reward, it's the path to reward. And I know many people at this stage of their life, I do a lot of executive coaching, I'm in workshops facilitating quite frequently. I get to hear people's dreams, I get to hear about the things that they want to do. Last week I was in Paris and I was talking to an executive, and his big dream, like, he works in the oil and gas, he's got a tremendous amount of responsibility. He wants to open up a coffee shop. A simple dream, right? Like, seemingly simple dream. And there's aspects of that that really scare him because he's got kids to put through college and things like that. So anyway, risk is the path to reward. And most of the dreams that we have right now, we probably have all that it takes to get there. We've done risk before, we can leverage the skill set to achieve in the long run. And I think this is the final thing about a misconception of risk is that we think we can avoid it. We think that if we just put our head down and tune out the noise, that we can avoid taking risks. My thought is that we're always changing. There's so much uncertainty. Not taking a risk is a risk. We think that if we don't change, nothing is going to change. My guidance to my friends during the pandemic was that, hey, you can wear your yoga pants for 30 days straight, but I trust you on day 31, when you put your jeans on, they're not going to fit. So again, you didn't change, something changed. We're always changing. So rather than avoid risk, which is really the nature of the world that we live in, we should learn how to embrace risk and make this quality useful for us.
Absolutely agree with that, because when you talked about not taking a risk, that's one of the things that I'm always talking not only to myself but to most of my clients, that you may think, you know what, I am not going to be taking this step, or I'm not going to make this decision, because there is that fear that you talked about earlier. And in not taking that step, you feel comfortable because you don't want to step out of your comfort zone. And yet, when you're not taking that step, you are actually making that decision of not doing anything and not thinking about what is it's going to cost you. So it's super important to do that. And you reference to dreams. So share with us, if you like, your 5 steps as to what people could do so that the dreams could get realized.
Yeah, I love the concept of dreaming because it seems so fantastical. It feels sometimes like, I'm back in fourth grade again, writing on a journal on top of my big pink bedspread. But really, dreams are within us. And I love this quote, and I'm gonna probably not get it accurate, but I was reading Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art, and he talks about that we live 2 lives, the one that we're currently living and the unlived life within us. And I think about that unlived life within us in many ways embodies our dreams and to get back in touch to it. But the problem with where we in society are right now is we're so busy that the time we could be using for daydreaming, we're on our phones, we're, playing games, or videos, or writing out our grocery list, or we're texting. We've designed our lives to be, even during the pandemic, in such a hurry and so distracted that we forget to tune in to ourselves. And so we write in Bed on You about the process for dreaming. First and foremost starts with, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to do? Uniquely you, not what the world is telling you to do, but what speaks to your heart and speaks to your mind. You can certainly take recommendations from the outside world, but self-authorship is really important. And then, is it probable and possible? Can it happen? Can you do it? I'd like to be like Madonna, but I'm not Madonna. I'm Angie. I mean, I wish I could sing and dance and be as a mega talented as she is, but that's who she is. So, is what I want to do even achievable? And it's not about the outcome, right? Me with the microphone on the stage, but I can always learn how to sing. So, is it probable? Is it possible? Can you afford it? Can you resource it? Do you have the time? Do you have the money? Is maybe not now, but maybe 2 years from now. And that's really critical too. And then the starting point. Does it actually have an access point that you can walk right into? It's like finding a trailhead on a path. And that's another thing important too. One of the things you said earlier too about decision making in life is that not making a decision is making a decision. I believe that life is going to be hard no matter which path you pursue. So, wouldn't you rather pursue your dreams and experience the struggle on a journey that really calls your soul? Because I know I would. Like, again, if I do nothing, life is going to be hard. But if I walk towards my dreams and aspirations, life is going to be hard. And I have the opportunity to step into something really exciting.
That is beautiful. Is dreams is what drives people. Because think about it. If we were actually, surprisingly, one of my clients recently, she's a VP in one of the very big companies and getting super great pay. And for past few sessions, we have been having this conversation where she's talking about that she feels out of sync with herself. She doesn't feel that she's living her life. And she just feels disconnected. And
I
as we explored,
Yeah.
what we found was that she had shoved her dream aside for the title and for the pay grade. So that goes back to us, and it brings us back to your process about the dreaming. So, what would you say to people who have kind of got sidetracked and lost their path and still have that dream lurking somewhere in the background?
Yeah, and so I hear you. It's true because I think sometimes we pursue what society says is important, a job title or certain salary. But if anyone has ever done that before and find that that's not fulfilling, that's exactly what we're talking about, that you're achieving, but you're not fulfilling what your intentions and aspirations are. I think one of the most important things that professionals can do is first off take a step back. And I'm pretty big into meditative processes to really kind of clear your mind of garbage and clarify your dreams. So if you think that you can just schedule like 3 to 5 on a Friday and you're going to uncover your dreams, I've got some sad news for you. It's probably not going to be as sudden. It really does take some reflection. And so the processes that I really like to promote are journaling, are breathing, go through yoga or any sort of, meditative practices, like clear your mind of junk. I love walking too, and I'm a runner as well. Sometimes even just running without headphones or music pumping through my earbuds is really, really beneficial for me. So that's just, again, a few steps and processes to start to listen to yourself and get clarity around what it is that you feel is important for you to express your authentic self. And then when you think about dreaming too, we approach where we advocate for a kaleidoscope perspective. We're multidimensional people. And so our dream should be as well. And when we think about a kaleidoscope, what makes it so beautiful is the multiple chambers with balanced chips in each chamber. So think about your life like that, but maybe label the chambers, my life, my career, my impact, which I oftentimes think of volunteering. We're part of a community. To get the benefits of a community, we have to give something into it. And, thinking about it in that, and for fun, that's another chamber that I think we often neglect, is that in pursuit of career advancement and things like that, we forget that we can have fun too and find joy in our lives. So I would say do some processes with that. And, I know the type of person that you're talking about, Divya. I've talked to those people too. They find that career, they're like crushing it. They're doing everything, but their family life is suffering, or their joy is suffering, or they're not volunteering towards causes that are really critical. So they just are off balance and need to get back into balance.
Very powerful statements over there. And what happens is so many times people find themselves alone. And during these times, it's super important to have those guides and not mentors. So, can you illustrate if you have any story and how can people go about it?
I will ask anybody and everybody for help. I am unashamed of reaching out to people and acquiring what I like to think of are secondhand experiences. We only can do so much in our lifetime. Even the hyper ambitious, you can only acquire so many experiences, but you can learn from other people. And so we talk about the criticality of guides in helping you uncover and develop your dreams and action plans to take towards them. We mentioned that there are three types of people in our life. The first are we call champions. I like to, rather than approach relationships for mentoring relationships, I like to think about champions. I like that word a little bit better because I bet, Divya, if I were to come to you and say, could you mentor me? That sounds like such a big ask to a lot of people. But if I said, can you connect with me for 30 minutes and share with me some guidance and best practice and some of your wisdom that you've picked up? That seems more doable. And champion relationships might turn into mentorships, but if you make the small ask first and see where it goes, you never know. So I think about champions as people who are doing what it is that I want to be doing and then asking them for help and guidance and perspective. And people are so excited to share their experiences with you. That's the thing that always surprises me and makes me so happy when I ask people, they're really excited to share. The second type of people that we need are what I like to call our big stagers, people like you, Divya, people who have a microphone and have a community and are encouraging people to live their best lives. And finding that group, finding your people can be a really great way to draw inspiration from on a day-to-day basis. So we need our champions, we need our big stagers, and also the third type of person are the no choosers. And these are perhaps our family and friends who are really supportive. And then there's also people who in your life, when you decide to make change, they're not going to be so supportive because your change disrupts their lives too. Like if you decide to go on a diet because you have a health and fitness goal, your family might be a little bummed that, you're not going to make double cheeseburgers on Tuesday night. like, so you just have to really learn how to manage people who are less supportive than you, not by compromising your dreams, but maybe compromising the path in which you can pursue your dreams.
Mm, definitely, it makes perfect sense. Let's visit no choosers. Because so many times what happens is that when somebody is deciding on going for the dream, then there is a cost associated to it, whether we like it or not. And it again goes back to what are you willing to put your stake in the ground? What are you willing to draw that line in the sand? Now, that said, yep, you're ready to draw a line in the sand, and yet your family is going to get impacted. How can people bring their friends and family who would get involved or impacted by the decisions to take that risk?
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of many people in this situation too. Maybe it's, couples who are living in the city and one person within the couple wants to move to the suburbs, get out of the city and, upsize their life with, larger living spaces and have more time, in their home versus the hustle and bustle of the city. That happens. Or maybe you think about career changes, like going back to the person that you had talked about. What if she decided to downsize her career and it impacted their family budget? Might have made her personally happy, but it certainly impacted your finances. And I think that these are really, difficult. So I've got one going on at my house. My husband wants a TV in our bedroom and I don't want one. Like, these are the types of negotiations that we all have to go through. And there's the thing that I can advocate for anyone who is seeking change in their life and they need the support of the people around them is just recognizing that it starts with having really honest conversations, and trying to figure out a way that it can both work for you. And it doesn't mean that you have to water down your dream or, again, if I want to quit my job or if I want to transition my career or want to go back to school, any of those things present disruption. And maybe it's really looking at the timeline differently. Maybe it's not this year. Maybe it's in 2 years. Maybe we can put a plan together. And I think those are relationships, trying to discover how we can work through this together without subordinating what's most important to you.
So true. And talking about having those honest conversations without watering down your dreams, have you done or had those conversations with any of your families, and would you be willing to share those?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've got many situations with that. About a few years ago, I wanted to run for public office, and I had a business partner and a team that I was leading, and I had, I was married to somebody else at the time, and it just wasn't going to work. It's like, despite what necessarily I wanted to do at the time period, it just didn't make financial sense at the time on the home front. And regarding the other obligations that I had at business, it just didn't make business sense. Now, that doesn't mean that I still don't want to run for public office one day. It just means that that time it was not right. And I can think of other situations too. I have older children now. When I was, earlier on in my career, I wanted to do a lot more international travel with work, and it just wasn't feasible. My husband at the time was an active duty Marine. He was traveling a lot. And despite what I wanted, it just wasn't the time. And now I have older children who are more self-sufficient. And now is the time for me to do more international travel. And I think sometimes that's a lot of patience that is required. It doesn't mean that you give up on your dream. It just means that you learn how to still walk towards your dream and maybe just put it on a different timeline. Those are choices and trade-offs I think that every professional has to make. And a really great way to think about how to make those choices are to reflect on your values and using those as your North Star and your guidepost. So again, early on in my career, my values, more importantly, when I had younger kids, were really getting them, um, really solid and feeling really secure in their attachment with both of their families. And now I feel really confident that they feel secure and I have a little bit more flexibility to travel.
That is so true. And I really liked what you said is about developing patience and your values. That dream, when you are thinking about dream, there's no timeline around it. It's also looking at who's involved and how can you fit it. And now you just mentioned that you had gone to Paris. So as your kids are older, you are able to travel. It
And they
is
can come with me. Yeah. And then it's like everybody wins, right?
absolutely. So what do your kids say now about international travel?
They love it. We're going to try to find a trip to Rome this summer. That's our big family goal. I've got a senior in high school, which is amazing. It's amazing because I started my business when I was pregnant with him. And now many things regarding the work that I do are truly coming into fruition. And he's a senior and he's going off to college. And so that's going to be our summer little getaway, is going to Italy.
And that's phenomenal because this past year, well, 2022, we're still in
Yeah.
2022. I had gone to Spain and France, and there's just something to be said about traveling and going to Dominican Republic. So, and it
Nice.
helps expand kids' horizons and traveling. It again goes back to experiencing that it's not just about like, what are you going to experience in life? When are you going to experience it? Doesn't have to happen at a certain time. When you're open and curious, it's so amazing that things just happen. And now, while this is happening, let's also take a look at another side of the coin of that fear. Fear will lead to procrastination. Do you
Oh,
have any tips up your sleeve for that?
yes. And I think a lot of people who procrastinate are perfectionists. And I'm sure you uncover those all the time, Divya, in your practice. Yeah, I think about perfectionists. We'll start there. It's got to be the right time. It's got to be the perfect plan. It's got to be star, sun, moon. Everything's got to align, and then I will start. And then you never start because it's never going to be perfect. I really love to embrace imperfection. And for the perfectionists out there, if you're trying to perfect anything, perfect your response to imperfection. That's where you can put your type A tendencies towards just dealing with messy. And so I think perfectionism leads to procrastination. And the thing that's a killer about procrastination is you've already made the decision. You've already made the decision that you want to do something and you're just delaying the benefit of the result. And it just drives me crazy. It's like if you decide you already want to do something, it's like people that I'm sure you've connected with too. Like I've got a lot of people who decided that they want to be a writer. Okay, then write. What are you waiting for? Wake up earlier, wake up an hour earlier. Just start. You got to start somewhere. And that's actually something that I picked up in the Marine Corps that I apply quite frequently is this one thirds, two thirds rule, which we write about in Bet on You. If you have like a set amount of time, one third of it should be planning, two thirds of it should be doing. So you're actually learning and applying and experimenting and discovering and figuring out what works. But that's not how a lot of people approach their ambitions or their goals. They want to get the perfect plan in place and then they'll start acting and it doesn't work out how they wanted it to. And so it makes it easier to quit. And that's not good.
Well, that's powerful. And I want you to define when you talked about the planning, because Pareto's law also says that 80-20%. So how would you say your one third planning and two third doing relates to the Pareto law?
Yeah, that's really great. I think about the 80-20. I've used it in a lot of variety of different perspectives. I think that that's part of just the embracing the imperfection and just being good with good enough. And that's where a lot of professionals struggle is, and this is part of the 80%. We have the first book that I wrote, Leading from the Front, we wrote about the 80% solution. There's no such thing as a perfect decision. Get enough information, 80%, and just start taking action because the rest of the information isn't going to be attainable because you're trying to predict the future to make it perfect. You're never going to get access to it. And so I think sometimes when it comes to in pursuit of your goals, getting comfortable with good enough.
Absolutely. So share with us a little bit more about your book and what's the book about? Where can people get it?
Yeah, thank you. So, Bet on You is really, you can get it wherever books are sold. And the inspiration for it was really just from my business partner and I who decided to write it. We'd written on leadership before, and leadership is such a big umbrella of a topic. There's a lot of different competencies and skills in regard to leadership development. We wanted to focus on one skill routinely. We kept hearing that would benefit many professionals, and that is risk taking. We wanted to dispel risk. Again, we think about it as something that is scary when really all it is a decision that leads you into uncertainty. And so, if you can demystify that, you can make risk seem accessible and you can learn how to embrace risk in your life. And so, that was the spirit of it. And so, we walk the readers through, really rebuilding their relationship with risk, trying to figure out how to dream better and to find the time in your life to experiment on the risks that you want to take. So if you want to start an Etsy store and you have a full-time job, trying to cut out margin in your life to tinker with your dreams so you can see if they're viable before you go all in on them. And then the last chapter is really about doing the work and addressing your fears, and especially the fear of failure. I go around in my workshops, I ask people, who here's learned more from their failures than their successes? Every single hand shoots up. And yet we're afraid to fail when it's the greatest teacher. And there's no real fail. It's learning if you really think about it. It's just how we put it into perspective in our life. And so trying to get people more comfortable with, again, failing and learning and really just addressing their fears so they can move forward.
That's fantastic. And how could people connect with you personally?
Yeah, if they visit Angie.Witkowski.com. That's a really big last name. I remarried in 2021, and it's every young girl's dream to marry a Polish man with a three-syllable last name. So it's Angie, Witkowski.com.
Oh, fantastic. And I'm sure people are going to get a lot of value from that, Angie.
Thank
And
you so
folks, here's
much.
what I'm going to share with you. I'm a fan of books, as you all know that. And most likely, I'm going to go ahead and get that book and read it as well. So definitely go get that book. And on that note, I want to share we have brought something super special for you. We have taken the world class, best selling, New York Times selling business and professional development books like Think Rich, Grow Rich, and Life Force, and I Could Flow. I could go on and on. And if you are itching to get ready for 2023, just as we have talked about, and get that competitive edge just for you, we have opened up a dollar trial for a week. So, as you can see, we have shared Angie's link, book link, as well as my link. It's thedreamsaccelerator.com/, B as in boy, S as in Sam 01. Go check it out. And we will be holding implementation circles and implementation success challenges. So it's not only about giving you the stuff and letting you do it, we will be pulling you in so that you are successful. So that's something that so many people had reached out to us and said, and I so appreciate you, my dear audience, for always sharing what is it that you're looking for. So we have heard you, we listened to you, and we did bring it. So do check it out. And Angie, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm delighted. I appreciate everything that you're doing. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers, for joining us, because without you, the show would not be possible. Keep sending us those emails and sharing. What is it that you'd like to hear? What is it that you'd like to bring for us to bring for you so that you can live the life you deserve and achieve those dreams that we have talked about? And I want to wish each and every one of you happy holidays and spend that beautiful time with your family, with your loved ones, because there's nothing more precious than that. And also, thank you, Juan, for all the technical support and making the show possible. Until next time, take care and be well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.